Hello, this is Chris Griffiths, and we're here to talk about the MLS. This is the first class in our MLS Class 1 software training. What we're going to start with is, I have to get the right screen there we go, is a map of iTech MLS. And here you see iTech MLS. This was formed back in 2002 when the Glendale Association of Realtors and the Pasadena-Foothills Association of Realtors broke away from what was then called MRMLS. It's now called CRMLS. We weren't happy with their direction, so we broke away and we formed our own MLS called iTech. And as you'll see, iTech is broken up into these coloured areas, which not surprisingly are called areas. And in our part of the world, areas have number values. That's not true across the whole of Southern California. You will find in other areas they have letter denominations. Don't get hung up on it. I really wouldn't advise you to try learning these. It's not worth it. When we get into the MLS, you'll see that it's very easy to look up those areas. Now, this is a map of Carrots. Now, Carrots is not an MLS. Carrots is a group of MLSs that have gotten together and agreed to share their data. And the first thing to know is that iTech is slap bang in the middle of it. The next thing you need to know is that this summer, Carrots changed fairly dramatically. And basically what happened was CRMLS, which is our neighbour to the east, chose to leave, along with Desert Area MLS. Now, Desert Area MLS is actually going to be coming back to us. Probably in the new year, they'll be back in Carrots, and we won't see too much of a difference. But CRMLS has left. Now, in our day-to-day business, this actually isn't going to have a huge impact. Behind the scenes, it had an impact, but they are still sharing data. So let's look at what Carrots is now. Basically, Carrots is these four MLSs: Ventura, ChrisNet, iTech, and Claw. And in our next slide, what we're going to see is the areas that each of these MLSs service and cover. Here is a legend that shows you the different colors of the different pins. And Carrots, as I said, is now these four MLSs. So Carrots basically covers the San Fernando Valley, the Santa Clarita Valley, the West Side, and Ventura. And then it also covers Palm Springs. Seems a little odd, but Palm Springs is actually a part of Claw, the West Side MLS. Now, in our day-to-day business, nothing has really changed because we continue to share data with our neighbours. So whilst we are these blue pins here in the middle, the data that you'll find in the MLS encompasses all of Southern California. And broadly speaking, the boundaries are the Ventura, Santa Barbara county line in the west, just south of Lake Castaic in the north, down to Camp Pendleton in the south, and all the way to the Colorado River, that's Needles on the far side of the Mojave there, in the east. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons, and one of them is that one of our key rules is called mandatory submission, Rule 7.8. And what that says is that if you take a residential listing anywhere in that area is considered to be our service area, not just the blue pins that represent iTech, but that whole area. If you take a residential listing in that area, you have to put it in the MLS within 2 business days, unless you get written instructions from your seller. By the way, if you get written instructions, you have to file those instructions with the board within 2 days. It's one of our key rules. Now, you'll notice that areas like Lancaster, Palmdale, Acton, pardon me, Riverside, and Big Bear are not included. We don't have pins up there. But when you go and search in our MLS, you will find a ton of properties in those areas. Don't be fooled. You're not looking at the local agents' listings. You're looking at the listings that our agents, the agents in Carrots, have up there. We have 93,000 agents. We've got a lot of listings. So if you were to take a listing in Acton, for example, and you wanted to reach the local agents, you would need to join their MLS in order to do so. Now, our software is what is called browser independent. That's really good news. You can use any of the modern browsers. Our software, by the way, is from a company called Rapatoni, which is a privately held company in Simi Valley. It's used across the nation by about 160,000 agents. Let's look at a couple of important things. The first is keep your browser up to date. Some browsers do this a lot better than others. For example, if you use Chrome, it will never ask you, it'll just do it. Pretty good. But if you have a browser that asks you, go ahead and update your browser. It's very important. The second thing is that no matter which browser you use, there is a thing called a cache, and that's spelled C-A-C-H-E. And this is something that speeds up your interaction with the internet. It's a good thing. But the problem is, pardon me, over time, it will become bloated and corrupt. And if you actually have a problem with the MLS, the first thing tech support will do, if you call them, is ask you to clear your cache. So I would advise you to learn how to clear your cache. Just do a Google search for how to clear the cache in your particular browser. And I would advise you to do that on a regular basis. By the way, there are some third-party programs that you can do that will do that for you. The last thing is that our software uses Java and Flash. Now, especially if you're a Mac user, this has been a source of contention. But if you see a message saying that you need to update your Java or your Flash, go ahead and do it. It's very important. It has a big impact, especially on our mapping, which we'll cover in more detail in Class 2. One last thing. There is one tool in the MLS called Custom Report Writer that you have to use Internet Explorer for. I would not advise using Custom Report Writer. I used to teach it, and I taught it for a buyer's tour and for a flyer, and both of those things are done really, really well by a third-party application that we have now called Cloud CMA. And that's the last thing I'll cover in Class 2 of this series. So my advice, don't use the Custom Report Writer. You know, if you really want to get yourself frustrated, hey, go ahead and do it. But, you know, I'd say it's not necessary. Our next segment, we will actually log into the MLS. So see you on the other side.